You may have woken today with an unexplainable heaviness in your chest, a feeling without a clear origin, as though something within you remembers what your waking mind cannot yet name. Between the stillness of night and the return of morning light, something subtle but significant may have shifted, not loudly or visibly, but in a way that quietly redirects the path ahead. It is often in moments when we are unaware that life reorganizes itself, not through chaos, but through quiet alignment that only becomes clear once we begin to notice the echoes. You may not recall anything unusual, yet the emotional residue remains, creating a sense that something important has passed, just beyond the reach of memory. This is why thoughts feel scattered, why certain moments replay without explanation, and why intuition feels slightly louder than reason today. Not everything that changes announces itself, and not every turning point arrives with clarity, but that does not make it any less real or important. Sometimes understanding arrives slowly, unfolding in layers rather than sudden revelations, allowing the mind to catch up with what the heart already senses. You might find yourself reviewing ordinary interactions from yesterday, searching for meaning in small details that now feel slightly different under today's awareness. Even without clear answers, there is a sense that something has aligned or concluded in a way that will gradually reveal its purpose. Trust that this inner restlessness is not confusion alone, but also a signal that awareness is expanding and catching up with unseen change. In time, what feels unclear now will settle into understanding, and the weight you feel will transform into clarity and direction. Someone thought about you last night with intensity that could not be ignored. Someone faced a realization they were trying to delay for a long time. It was not dramatic on the outside. No loud confrontation, no obvious scene. Just a pause, a breath, a stare into darkness where honesty could no longer be avoided. And in that pause, something undeniable surfaced. They saw the consequences of their actions clearly for the first time. They felt the absence of your presence more loudly than your voice ever sounded. They understood what they risked losing, not in theory, but in reality. That understanding did not come gently. It arrived like a quiet collapse inside their chest. They realized they crossed a line they cannot uncross, and now the truth stands between them and you, like a closed door waiting to be opened. This is why the energy feels different today. This is why even silence feels loud. Because once something is realized, it cannot be unseen, and last night created a realization that cannot be undone. You may wonder why no one has told you yet, why everything appears normal on the surface, why messages sound ordinary and faces look familiar. But that is because the truth is still being processed by the one who carries it. They are measuring words. They are calculating timing. They are trying to decide how much you deserve to know and how much they can still control. What happened last night did not give them peace. It gave them fear. Fear of exposure, fear of loss, fear of your reaction. They are aware now that you are stronger than they assumed, more perceptive than they expected, and far less dependent than they hoped. That realization shook them, because control only works when the other person doubts themselves, and last night showed them that you no longer do. Something you said before, something you did not say, something about the way you walked away from a conversation. It stayed with them, it echoed, and in the quiet hours, when there was no distraction left, that echo turned into clarity. They know now that if you find out everything, things will never return to how they were, and that knowledge has made them careful, nervous, and unusually silent. Do not mistake this silence for calm. This is not peace. This is tension, disguised as normalcy. This is someone holding their breath, hoping you do not ask the one question they are afraid to answer. Last night forced them to confront the version of themselves they avoid during the day. The version that knows what was done cannot be justified forever. The version that understands accountability is approaching. Something was confirmed last night that they hoped would remain uncertain. Something about loyalty, something about truth, something about you. They realized you are not as unaware as they assumed. They noticed patterns shifting. They noticed you pulling your energy back. They noticed your silence has meaning. And that scared them more than confrontation ever could. Because silence means you are observing. Silence means you are thinking. Silence means you are preparing. And they know once you see the full picture, you will not beg, you will not chase, and you will not settle. That realization changed the way they see you permanently, and it changed the way they see their own choices. This is why today feels like standing at the edge of something unknown, because you are. The truth is not running toward you loudly. It is approaching quietly, carefully, step by step. Last night was the beginning, not the end. A door was opened in someone's mind that cannot be closed again. A truth was acknowledged internally, even if it has not been spoken aloud. And once a truth exists, it finds a way to surface. You do not need to search for it desperately. You do not need to force answers. What happened last night set a chain in motion, and that chain leads directly to clarity. You will know, not because someone wants to confess, but because reality has a way of revealing itself when the time is right. Stay present, stay alert, and keep your thoughts steady, because something you are not yet fully aware of is slowly moving toward the surface. And when it arrives, it will reshape how you interpret everything that happened before it. What took place after midnight didn't simply fade with the passing hours. It lingered in the background of someone's mind, echoing through reflections that became clearer and more uncomfortable as silence settled in. Sleep may have paused the world around you, but it did not stop the inner processing that followed. Conversations were mentally revisited with a new sharpness, as if details that were once overlooked suddenly aligned into a pattern that could no longer be ignored. Words that felt ordinary at the time began to carry unintended meaning, and choices once dismissed as temporary started to feel far more lasting than expected. At some point in the night, a realization surfaced, quiet but undeniable, that maintaining a certain version of events required assumptions that were no longer stable. The moment perception began to shift, that fragile structure began to weaken. It didn't collapse dramatically, it unraveled in subtle layers of understanding. That is why today may feel different, almost dense, as though unspoken tension is sitting just beneath everything. Once awareness takes root, ignoring it demands effort that only grows heavier with time. There is now an understanding that cannot be easily undone, a recognition that circumstances are no longer where they used to be. Somewhere in the stillness, an internal question appeared, less about others and more about personal choices and truths that had been postponed. And that question, once formed, does not simply disappear. It continues working quietly in the background, shaping what comes next. They questioned their intentions. They questioned their honesty. They questioned how far they were willing to go to protect what they created. That moment did not bring comfort. It brought discomfort, the kind that forces growth or exposure. They realized that continuing on the same path would eventually lead to a confrontation they are not prepared for. They felt the weight of consequences pressing closer. This was not guilt alone. This was recognition. Recognition that you are not confused. Recognition that you are not dependent. Recognition that you are evolving beyond the version of you they thought they understood. And that recognition changed their strategy, because last night showed them that time is no longer on their side. Every delay increases risk. Every silence adds pressure. Every normal conversation feels like borrowed time. They are now aware that you sense more than you say, and that awareness has made them uneasy. Something else happened last night that you have not been told yet. A realization about power, not dominance, not control, but inner strength. They finally understood that the power dynamic they relied on no longer exists. You are no longer seeking validation. You are no longer waiting for clarity from outside yourself. And that shift terrified them. Because people only fear losing control when they know it mattered in the first place. They replayed moments when you chose calm instead of reaction. Moments when you chose silence instead of explanation. Moments when you walked away without needing closure. Those moments spoke louder than words. Last night connected those moments into a clear pattern. You are not breaking. You are stabilizing. You are not confused. You are awakening. And that awakening threatens the narrative they built. Because once you fully see the truth, you will not ask for answers. You will simply move differently. They know this now, and knowing it has unsettled them deeply. Pay attention to the subtle shifts today, the hesitation before a reply, the change in tone, the unnecessary reassurance. These are not accidents. These are signs of someone recalculating their position. Last night forced them to consider outcomes they hope to avoid. Outcomes where you choose yourself. Outcomes where you no longer accept partial truths. Outcomes where their influence over you disappears completely. That fear has sharpened their awareness. They are watching you more closely now, not because they want to understand you, but because they want to anticipate you. They are trying to read your energy, to guess what you know, to sense how close you are to clarity. And yet, the irony is this: the more they watch, the more obvious their own tension becomes. The more they try to maintain normalcy, the more the cracks show. Because authenticity cannot be faked forever, and last night reminded them of that reality. What you need to understand is this: you are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing anything meant for you. The truth is approaching at a pace designed to protect your strength, not overwhelm it. Last night was preparation, not punishment. It set the stage for honesty, whether delivered willingly or revealed through circumstance. Trust the unease you feel. It is not anxiety. It is alignment. It is your inner awareness synchronizing with reality. You do not need to rush toward answers. Let them come. Let the pressure build where it belongs. Because what was realized last night cannot remain hidden forever. And when it finally surfaces, you will not feel shocked. You will feel confirmed. My beloved child, the most dangerous illusion is believing that truth can be delayed without consequence. Because what happened last night did not pause. It only went underground, gathering weight, shaping outcomes, and quietly choosing sides. Someone woke up today with a plan they did not have before. Not a plan to heal, not a plan to be honest, but a plan to manage perception. They believe if they control the timing, they can control the impact. If they soften the edges, they can escape accountability. This belief was born last night. In the same moment, they realized the situation had slipped beyond comfort. People often begin to choose their words more carefully when they sense a shift in understanding, as if trying to prepare for questions that may never come. What looks like overthinking or guarded responses is often just uncertainty trying to find structure. In reality, it isn't about winning or losing confidence. It's about adjusting to something that no longer feels predictable. When situations change, people tend to interpret stillness in different ways. But stillness is not always confusion. Sometimes it is simply space, allowing things to settle on their own. That space becomes important because it prevents rushed conclusions and gives clarity a chance to form naturally rather than being forced. You might notice that what once felt emotionally tangled now feels noticeably simpler, not because emotions disappeared, but because they became easier to understand without constant reaction. There is also a subtle difference between withdrawing and becoming clear about what you feel and what you will no longer overextend yourself to explain. Silence, in that sense, stops being empty and starts becoming informative. It reflects awareness rather than distance. In moments like this, perception changes on both sides. One side may assume meaning in absence, while the other begins to recognize that understanding does not always require repetition or reassurance. What shifts most is not the relationship itself, but the way it is interpreted. Expectations soften, assumptions lose weight, and emotional reactions become less immediate. Over time, this creates a quieter kind of balance, where presence is no longer measured by intensity, but by steadiness. And in that steadiness, a new kind of clarity emerges, one that does not need to be defended or proven, only understood as it is. The story they told themselves to justify their actions no longer made sense. Excuses lost their strength. Rationalizations collapsed under their own weight. They realized that even if they could explain everything, it would not change how it made you feel. And that is the part they cannot control. They are beginning to understand that intention does not erase impact, that apologies do not restore trust, that explanations do not guarantee forgiveness. This understanding is heavy because it removes escape routes. It forces responsibility, and responsibility requires courage they are not sure they have. That uncertainty is why they are quieter now. That uncertainty is why they are watching more than speaking. Because last night made it clear that once the truth is fully known, the outcome will no longer be theirs to shape. Do not underestimate the power of what you are doing by simply remaining present and aware. You are allowing the truth to rise on its own. You are letting pressure build naturally. You are refusing to interrupt a process that must complete itself. Last night created momentum. And momentum does not need pushing. It only needs direction. The direction is already set, toward exposure, toward clarity, toward a moment where silence will no longer be enough. You will notice signs before words arrive, small inconsistencies, subtle defensiveness, emotional overcompensation. These are not random. They are symptoms of internal conflict. They are signs that the truth is pressing against the surface, looking for release. And when it comes, it will not arrive as chaos. It will arrive as confirmation of what you already sensed. Remember this above all else. You are not waiting for something to happen to you. You are standing in the middle of something happening for you. Last night was not about loss. It was about alignment. It was about removing illusions that no longer serve your growth. Whatever is revealed next will not weaken you. It will strengthen your position. It will clarify your path. And it will prove that your intuition was never wrong. Stay steady. Stay grounded. Because the truth that began moving last night is getting closer now. My beloved child, as the hours pass, the weight of last night continues to press on the one who carries its truth. Because unresolved reality does not fade, it tightens, and the more it is resisted, the louder it becomes. Something you have not noticed yet is happening behind the scenes. Their confidence is slipping, not dramatically, subtly, in the pauses between sentences, in the hesitation before decisions, in the sudden need to explain things that never required explanation before. Last night did not just create awareness, it created urgency. They understand now that the window to control the narrative is closing. Every hour that passes without confession increases the risk of exposure through circumstance rather than choice. And this is where fear intensifies. Because control feels safest when truth is managed. But last night showed them that truth is already ahead of them, moving faster than their ability to contain it. They are replaying scenarios in their mind, imagining how you might react once everything is known. And none of those scenarios end the way they want. They see strength in you now, where they once saw flexibility. They see boundaries where they once saw patience. And that shift changes everything. Last night made it clear that you are no longer someone who can be guided away from clarity. You are no longer someone who needs convincing. You are someone who observes, integrates, and then acts with certainty. This realization stripped away their sense of safety, because influence only exists where doubt lives, and doubt no longer lives in you. That is why they feel exposed even before being confronted. That is why their energy feels unsettled, because they know the ground beneath them is no longer stable. There is also something important happening within you, even if you have not consciously named it yet. A calm certainty is forming, not excitement, not anger, certainty. The kind that arrives when your inner awareness aligns with reality. Last night strengthened that alignment. It sharpened your perception. You may notice you are less reactive today, less invested in explanations, less interested in chasing reassurance. That is not detachment. That is empowerment. You are already moving through a quiet inner shift, not by forcing yourself into readiness but by slowly finding your center. Without even realizing it, you are building a sense of stability that will allow you to meet whatever comes next without losing balance. When clarity finally arrives, it won't feel like a disruption or something that throws you off course. Instead, it will feel like recognition, as if something within you had already started understanding it long before it became visible. This is why everything seems to be unfolding at its own measured pace, not to create uncertainty, but to make sure your awareness is steady enough to hold the full picture without distortion. Attempts to postpone honesty or avoid direct understanding only make the outcome sharper when it eventually surfaces. What once felt uncertain is gradually taking shape, and with each passing moment, your sense of direction becomes more defined. As you become more grounded in your own thoughts and emotions, external explanations begin to lose their weight, no longer influencing you as strongly as before. There is a natural withdrawal happening, a quiet turning inward where your focus returns to your own needs, your own clarity, and your own emotional independence. This shift is noticeable in subtle ways, and it naturally changes the dynamic around you without confrontation or tension. What matters most now is not reaction, but alignment with yourself. You are not being pushed into confusion or overwhelm. You are being guided into a more stable understanding of where you stand. Whatever unfolds ahead will likely feel structured rather than chaotic, arriving in a way that feels precise and grounded. And when it does, instead of inner conflict, there will be a sense of ease, as if things are finally settling into their rightful place. Because last night did not begin a problem, it began the end of one. My beloved child, the quiet tension you feel now is not uncertainty, it is resolution forming beneath the surface, because when truth prepares to emerge, everything unnecessary begins to fall away. Last night marked the point where delay stopped being a strategy and became a liability. They know it. You sense it. The atmosphere has changed. What once felt ambiguous now feels inevitable. Their inner dialogue has shifted from avoidance to damage control, from comfort to calculation. They are no longer asking how to maintain the illusion. They are asking how to survive the moment it breaks. This shift did not happen slowly. It happened in a single realization, when they understood you are no longer attached to outcomes that do not honor you. That understanding altered their posture, their tone, and their energy. And energy never lies. You may not hear the truth yet, but you can feel its pressure increasing, demanding release. They are beginning to notice something unsettling about you. You are not waiting. You are not anxious. You are not reaching out for reassurance. That absence of urgency confuses them. Because people who depend on others for clarity behave differently. They question. They seek validation. They push for answers. You are doing none of that, and that silence speaks volumes. It tells them you already know more than they assumed. It tells them you are prepared for outcomes they hoped you would fear. Last night confirmed something they did not want to accept. Your strength does not come from what they provide. It comes from who you have become. And once that truth settled in, their leverage disappeared. They are now aware that whatever they reveal will not define you. It will expose them. Inside you, a line has been crossed quietly and permanently. Not a line of anger, but of clarity. You are no longer willing to carry confusion that does not belong to you. You are no longer willing to explain your worth to anyone who benefits from misunderstanding it. This shift is subtle but absolute. Last night anchored it. That is why you feel composed instead of restless. That is why your thoughts are steady. You are not bracing for impact. You are standing ready for truth, and readiness changes how truth arrives. It no longer comes to shatter. It comes to settle. It comes to restore balance. It comes to confirm what your intuition has been whispering all along. What happens next will not be dramatic in the way stories usually describe. It will be direct. It will be undeniable. It will carry a finality that leaves no room for confusion. The truth will present itself through words, actions, or circumstances, but it will be complete. No fragments, no half explanations, no blurred lines. Last night ensured that. It aligned timing with awareness, and once that alignment occurs, events move with precision. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to prepare defenses. Everything you need is already within you. Your calm is proof. Your clarity is evidence. Your grounded presence is the signal that you are ready to receive what is real. Remember this moment, not because of what you lost, but because of what you gained. You gained self-trust. You gained stability. You gained the ability to stand without needing answers immediately. Power changes outcomes, and once it enters a situation, nothing remains exactly as it was before. What unfolds next will meet you at your present reality, not the version of you that existed earlier. Something significant shifted last night, setting in motion a chain of realizations that cannot be reversed. When clarity finally arrives, it will not feel unfamiliar, but like something long understood beneath the surface. There is a sense that alignment is now completing itself, quietly connecting events that once felt unrelated. What feels like anticipation is actually convergence, where hidden threads tighten and begin to reveal structure. As pressure builds, timing adjusts, exposing what was unstable and encouraging movement where stagnation once existed. This process is already influencing decisions, creating shifts that appear sudden, but are actually the result of accumulation. You may notice conversations unfolding differently, or situations aligning in ways that feel too precise to ignore. This is not coincidence but consequence, where outcomes naturally reflect everything that has been building beneath the surface. At this stage, truth no longer negotiates possibilities. It simply moves toward resolution at its own pace. Those involved are now facing choices that carry clear weight, where every action defines a new direction. Delay reduces influence, while honesty strengthens position, leaving little room for ambiguity going forward. This awareness can feel uncomfortable because it removes the safety of uncertainty and replaces it with clarity. What was once concealed is now nearing full visibility, reshaping how relationships and intentions are understood. From this point forward, interactions cannot return to their previous form, as awareness has permanently changed the context. Everything now moves with irreversible direction forward.